Well, maayong gabi sa inyo tanan-tanan. Good evening, good evening. Happy New Year, liwat. First time to get into a Bible study in the Old Testament in 2025. Turns out we didn't go very far. We went from Ecclesiastes chapter 4 to Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Moving right on through as we're continuing our Bible study through the Old Testament. You'll recall Solomon, who was the king, he had an age now. May edad na siya. He's getting a little older. He's decided he wants to find out what is the meaning and what is the purpose of life, and he has the resources to do it. He has the money, he had all the opportunity. He was the king of Israel. He was uncontested. There was no nation greater, no more country powerful than they were at this particular point in history. He could do whatever he wanted to. He had wives, he had horses, he had it all, and he found that none of it made him happy. There was no purpose. In fact, I love the description that he gives. It's a beautiful, awesome understanding of what it means to try to find happiness in this life. Kapyut sa hangin. Grasping for the wind. If I could only get this. And he tried to grab it. And it looked like it could give him an answer, but there was nothing there. Well, what if I tried that? He grabbed for that. Same thing. Looked like there was some kind of fulfillment, some kind of an answer, but it was empty. Everything he reached for, nothing gave him an answer. And he got to the conclusion, this life is mean. He goes, in fact, this life is so cruel, you'd be better off if you were just dead. He said, better are the dead than the living, because at least the dead don't have to deal with it. Better yet, if you'd never been born, because then you would never have experienced this to begin with. He's thinking, man, this life is not worth it. This life is miserable. You know what? It's just not worth trying to go through. If you are looking for answers under the sun, this is the key. Solomon's looking for answers, that is kalibutan. And he goes, there's just nothing to find. And he comes to the conclusion, you know what? Just be content. Don't work too hard, because if you work too hard, other people will be jealous of what you have. Don't work too little, because then you're going to starve to death. Find a nice in-between. Work just enough and try to just find happiness and purpose in life, because under the sun, he said, there's nothing I can give to you. There's nothing I can find other than hopefully you have someone to go through with. Because kalaoigid ko ni kalangisa. Better to have at least someone to walk through with. A threefold cord is the one that's not easily broken. Which brings us to our Bible study this evening. As we pick up in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, and Solomon continues this search. He's not done. He's going to be exhaustive. He's going to try everything and anything he can to find meaning. And the next thing on his list is religion. Can you find meaning? Do you find purpose if you look to religion? Take a look at verse 1. Walk prudently when you go into the house of God and draw near to hear, rather than give your sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they do evil. Now you got to listen, because this is where Solomon gets very entertaining. He's going, listen, maybe, basi na lang, as he continues this search for purpose and for meaning, he goes, maybe the answer can be found in coming to the house of the Lord. Ang balay sang Ginoo. What is the house of the Lord? We would say church. If I come to church, does that give me meaning? If I come to worship the Lord, can I find purpose there? And Solomon goes, make sure you come with the right heart. Make sure you come with the right perspective. For if you walk in, bantay imotil, watch your feet. Because if you're coming in just to offer a sacrifice, think of the days of the Jews. Sa mga tempo sa mga Hudeo na lang, kung nakata sila sa temple, it was para mahala na lang. He says, if you come in and give your offering to the Lord, if you give your sacrifice, just because it's routine, just out of a sense of ritual, and you don't stop to think, why am I offering a sacrifice? Why am I coming to church? Why am I coming before the Lord? You're a fool. Because God is not after ritual, He wants you to listen. Ang desire sang Ginoo, ang gusto sang Ginoo is pamati kita sa iya pulong. He wants us to listen to His word. And so Solomon says, when you come before the house of God, when you come in the presence of the Lord, come to listen to the Lord. Now I got to tell you, this is good application. Powerful para sa aton. Because I think a lot of people, it's that PPP, pungko pamati pulidayon. And they just come and they think, well, I've done my job. I've given my sacrifice to God. I was here on a Sunday morning, or if you want to, a Wednesday night, biskinsano lang. And I did what God required. I sat down. I endured the service. You know, the worship, well, it's pretty good. The teaching, I could be better. But hey, I was here. And I went home. And I did what God desired. Did we listen? If we don't understand, if we're not here to listen to the word of the Lord, we're being a fool. Because God does not want just service. He doesn't want us just attending. He wants us to grow and learn that we might find Him. Get a relationship with the Lord. That's what it should all be about. And Solomon recognized that. It should not just be about empty ritual. But he also had a perspective. Look at verse 2. Do not be rash with your mouth. Do not let your heart utter anything hastily before God. For God is in heaven, you are on earth. Therefore, let your words be few. This is nice. So, kung masimba kita, if we walk into the house of the Lord, there's a tendency sometimes to want to run the mouth. Think that somehow we have the solutions, we have the answers. Let me tell you what to do. Ang iba sa mga tao, basta may problema sila. And you go, you know what, I'm so glad that you came and asked what I should do about this problem. Let me give you my insight, let me give you my counsel, let me give you my wisdom. Stop right there. This is what Solomon's saying. Do not think that your mouth can give people solutions. Do not deceive yourself in your heart, somehow thinking that you have the answers that people need. Why? Kaya ari kita sa kalibutan. We're here upon the earth. We do not have very good perspective. Much better to go to the Lord. Why go to God? Dito sa langit siya. He's in heaven, and from heaven He can see a whole lot better than we can here upon the earth. You know, I got to tell you, there are advantages to being tall. I do smile this, especially like I go to SM or to one of the malls, I can see for miles. There is nobody taller than me. I see over the top of everyone's head. I can see absolutely anywhere. Now my wife, bless her heart, not so much. She can't see as clearly as I can because there's that benefit. There's that advantage to having that altitude, that vertical lift. You can just see further. This is the same truth as it comes to God. Ang problema para sa atin is we do not see very far. We cannot see buwas. We can't see, doesn't see mana, doesn't bulan, doesn't tuig. We don't see the future, therefore we do not give good counsel. We can tell people with a good intent. Our heart might be genuine, this is what I think you should do. But the truth is we do not know how it will turn out. We don't know what will happen. Therefore, it is far wiser, rather than to give people our counsel, to point people back to Jesus Christ, point them to the Lord. Go back to Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8. God's ways are not our ways. As high as the heaven is above the earth. By the way, that's very high. So is His ways above our ways, His thoughts above our thoughts. Therefore, Solomon points out quite rightly, we should let our words be very few. Do not come giving advice, come seeking the counsel that comes from the word of the Lord. For otherwise we might have foolish words. Look at verse 3. For a dream comes through much activity, and a fool's voice is known by his many words. Here's Solomon following back into his proverb-like ways with comparisons. He says, do you know why you dream? Why do we not get much sleep? Why do dreams wake us up? He says, well, if you're busy, if you're doing lots of things, your mind has a hard time turning off at night. You may go to sleep, but your mind is still running with all those things that you've been busy doing. So the busier you are, the more you're going to have dreams, the harder you're going to have getting a good night's sleep. Solomon goes, that happens. Amoman, if you use too many words, you're going to be seen as the fool that you are. Here's the thought. The more I say, the more you're going to see that I'm wrong. Kung sarado akong baba, if I keep my mouth shut, I might convince you that I'm somewhat smart and somewhat wise. Because I'm not giving you a whole lot of words to work with to be able to realize and understand. Not really, I'm not. Go back to Proverbs chapter 17, verse 28. Even a fool will be thought wise if he keeps silent. Konhipos lang siya. And this is the idea. Don't go spouting off with your ideas. Don't go putting out all your own thoughts. Because again, the truth of the matter is we do not have solutions. We do not have answers. We do not know what's going to happen tomorrow. And so the wisdom is, just don't say very much. Or we're going to find out, prove to others, we are a fool. Because we do not have the solutions. We do not know what the future holds. Instead, notice I get the pusan, jump down to verse 7. First, Solomon's going to wrap up this idea of seeking answers in religion with one simple statement. Do not look for a multitude of dreams or many words, because those are vanity. Instead, fear God. Meaning, People do not need our dreams. They don't need our ideas. They certainly don't need our words. What do people need? They need the Lord. People do not come to church because we're so wise, we're so smart, we're so incredible. Not that you guys aren't wise and incredible, but we're frankly nothing compared to the Lord. They don't need our insight, our counsel. We need to point them back to Jesus Christ. The coming to church, the reason for church is simple. It is to learn about God. Why? Because He is truth. Go back to John chapter 17, verse 17. Your word is the truth. And that's what people need, because God is whom they should fear. God is the one they need to know. Religion is pointless. Relationship is what we're after, and that comes not by doing routine, but by coming to know and learn about a true and living God. But Solomon goes on. Look at verses 4 through 6. Having addressed this idea of come to listen, Solomon's going to go on and warn us to make sure that we keep our promises. Mind you, the context is still church. Kung makata sa simbahan, kung ari kita sa simbahan, if we come to the house of the Lord, ang balay sang Ginoo, when we make a vow to God, do it. In fact, he says quite interestingly, pay it. Now that's unusual wording. Why, if we have a vow, must we pay the vow? The word pay, here's some Hebrew for you on a Wednesday night, is an interesting word. It actually is the verb form of the Hebrew word shalom, which is translated as peace. And quite literally what it means is if we make a vow and we do not do it, we will not have peace. I got to tell you, this is very true. This is so very true. Have you ever sat there and said to somebody, I'll do this? And after you say it, you're like, I got it. I shouldn't have said that because I'm not sure I can do this. I'm not so sure I'm able to do that. I'm sorry, that might have put myself out there too far. But now you're stuck. You've said it and you don't have any peace unless you do it. You've got to follow through with what you say. Otherwise, you're in turmoil internally. And this is the point. If we make a vow, if we make a promise, especially to the Lord, do it, because otherwise you will have no peace. Better yet, though, just don't make promises. Look at verse 4 towards the end. For God has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you have vowed, but better not to vow than not to pay. Here's the thought. If you're going to make a promise, make sure that you're going to do it. But if you're not sure you can do it, simple solution. Don't make the promise. Don't put your foot in your mouth. Don't step into trouble. Don't get yourself in that place where you're going to be in turmoil. Better just to not say anything at all. How often have you heard this, by the way? I love these. These are fun. You're kulang kwarta, short on money. God, if you provide, I will. Go to church, read my Bible, fill in the blank. I'll praise you every day. Whatever it might be, we make those vows very quickly and a little too loosely. So God goes, okay, and He gives us what we need. Uh-oh. Now what? What are we going to do now? Because we made a promise, we made a vow. Would it have been wiser just to go, Lord, just please help out. I'm making no promises on my end. I know myself too well. I'm not sure what I'm going to carry through with, but if you can take care of this, you can help me out, I would appreciate it at least. Or how many people have said, Lord, if you'll take care of this family issue, help me out with this relational challenge, fill in the blank, whatever particular problem you might be having, I will do this, I will do that. These vows we make, we need to be so very cautious and careful because God holds us to them. If we're not going to follow through with it, it'd be better not to make it because otherwise, look at verse 6, our mouth causes us to sin, to not fulfill the vows we make is sin. And don't think we can say to the messenger of God, ay galit salako. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. That shouldn't have come out of my mouth. Too late. Why would we want God to be angry at our excuse and destroy the work of our hands? Here's the thought. We make the vow. We sin because we don't carry through on it. You try to take it back. I didn't mean that. Now, by the way, the word messenger here is very interesting. Depending on your translation, it might say the messenger of the temple or the messenger of God. There's different translations how they handle this word. It's actually the Hebrew word for angel. Now, in the context, we're not talking about physically an angel. We're talking about a messenger. someone who does come from God. In context, what I would say is it's referring to a pastor or a priest, depending on your particular denomination. And you can't come up to the pastor and go, Pastor, I made this vow, this promise before God. I don't think I can do it. Would you mind helping me take it back? Salat gid ko, pwede ba nakuha na lang? Can you take that away from me? No. There's nothing that can be done. Once the vow is made, we're stuck. We need to fulfill the words that we have given. And the idea here is that we're called to be, and Jesus would pick up on this, men and women of our word. And part of that, by the way, is don't make vows. Please, that's not a good thing. Why do people make promises in the first place? Because they do not intend to fulfill them. People say, I promise I'll do this. Why do I promise? Because you know me probably too well and know that I won't do what it is that I've said. So I'm trying to give you an assurance I'm actually going to follow through with it. Better not to promise. Don't make vows. Jesus would say in Matthew chapter 5, verse 37, just let your yes be yes and your no be no. For anything more than that is from the enemy, from the devil, from the evil one, because we're trying to convince people, trying to assure people that we're going to be truthful when we're probably not. Instead, just be faithful to the words that we have given. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Keep your word. Well, that brings us to the second thing we want to look at this evening. For Solomon, having taken this consolation that, well, when you look at religion, it's pointless, it's useless. If all you're doing is ritual and routine, it has no purpose. The only reason that the church, the temple existed was to know God. Have a relationship with God. Routine meant nothing. He's going to move on to a second subject now. Is there meaning in politics? Now you just know this is going to be entertaining. Because if there's not much meaning in religion and ritual, there's certainly much less in politics. But Solomon thought to give it a fair try. Look at verse 8. If you see the oppression of the poor and the violent perversion of justice and righteousness in a province, do not marvel at the matter. So, quite literally, Solomon's saying, hey, if you're looking around and you see your government, your officials, your leaders doing what? Oppressing the poor. What else? Having violent perversion rather than righteous justice. In other words, if they're doing everything wrong, if there's bad men in power, don't be amazed. Don't be surprised. In fact, it's actually kind of predictable. You want to guess, what is the ranking of the Philippines when it comes to corruption in governments in the world? Now, there's 180 nations in the world. So if you're number one, if you're the least corrupt nation, you're one. If you're the most corrupt nation, you're 180. Where do you think the Philippines lies? I was curious. I looked this up. Which one? 179? It's not that bad, actually. It's better than 179. There's much worse nations in the Philippines. Although it's not too high on the chart, it sits at 115. So out of 180 nations, ours is at 115. Meaning, there are worse, but there's a lot that are better. And there's a reason for this, because I got to tell you, the stories that you hear, they almost make you laugh. I knew a man, he actually comes to church here, who back in the day, he was working in a printing business. Sold machines, copiers, printers, ink and different papers, supplies to local government, facilities, local LGUs. And he told me how it worked, Dave. He said, if you're buying equipment, he says that has to be done legitimately. Because equipment has serial numbers that are trackable. So if you're buying a copier, buying a printer, hey, it had to be done on the upright. And whatever it was, it had to be sold. But if you were buying paper, if you're buying pencils, pens, consumables, that has no tracking number, no social, no serial numbers. So it was very easy to fudge those numbers. He told me how it worked. He'd walk in and you'd make the deal with the local government unit to sell however many pieces of equipment. But then you'd also say, well, we're also going to buy some paper. How much? 1,000,000 pesos worth. 1,000,000 pesos worth of paper. That's a pretty sizable purchase. Okay. How much paper did you deliver to them? None. He said, none. None at all. He said, that 1,000,000 was a check that was written to them. They would then kick back 10% to you. And then that million they just deposited, that was just, 5% went to this guy, 10% to that guy. It was all graft. It was all corruption. All that money just disappeared and it was untrackable because it was consumable. He goes, that's how the business works. He goes, this is how the country runs. Now, why shouldn't you be surprised? Look at verse 8 again. A high official watches over another high official, and a higher official yet watches over them. Verse 9. Moreover, the profits of the land is for all, even the king gets served from the field. Why should we not be amazed by corruption? Because it goes to the very highest levels. Why does a barangay captain, not very high, he's a small fish if we might say, why does he feel justified of the right to take a cut from deals that are made, from construction, from whatever project's being worked upon, 10%, 50%, 20%, whatever it is, he goes to him directly. Because the mayor does the same thing. When the mayor has projects, when the mayor is doing things, I know Albie's a wonderful guy, I'm sure, but hey, let's be honest, there's probably a portion of things that just go directly to Albie. He pockets that in his pocket. Okay, why does he feel right to do that? Because the congressmen go up the ladder. They do the same thing. They get their cuts. Why do they feel the right to get the cuts? Because the president, all the way to the very top, the king, the one in power, the one in authority, he does the same thing. Meaning, in totality, politics is by nature corrupt. And it's not, please pay attention, it's nothing new. Solomon was writing this 3,000 years ago, Amomang Pasubong. It doesn't change. Why? Because people don't change. People were sinners back in the day of Solomon. They're still sinners today. Therefore, any system that's based upon them is always going to be flawed. It will always be corrupt. Do not put your faith in governments. Solomon understood it well. He was the king of a nation. He says, don't put your faith here. And be careful of loving money. Look at verse 10. He who loves silver will never be satisfied with it, nor he who loves an abundance with increase. This is also vanity. So, ang mga tao, kampalang sila kwarta. People who love money will never have enough. Now, I got to tell you, I've watched this. This is very true. If someone is hungry for money and you give them 1,000 pesos, what do they want? 2. Give them 10, what do they want? 20. Give them 100,000, what they want? 1,000,000. It's never enough. No matter how much money, if money is what you want, you will never be satisfied by it. It is a craving that can never, ever be stemmed. Never be satisfied. You will always want more. And if you want stuff, people who long for an abundance and increase, it'll never be enough to satisfy them. Solomon says this is vanity. It is pointless. It is useless because it will never ever give you what you crave and what you want. Funny. I was talking to Jen the other day. We've sworn off McDonald's. She does enjoy burgers. I do enjoy them on occasion. We were talking about the other day and we were going, you know what? Should we stop by and give it a try? We haven't had McDonald's probably in 6-8 months a year. Should we stop by and get a Big Mac or a quarter pounder? And I looked at her and I went, why? I go, here's the irony of it. I know it sounds really good. It sounds so tasty. But if you eat a Big Mac, you know what you want? 2. If you have the fries, well, the fries got to be warm. If the fries are cold, you don't want any more. But if the fries are still warm, what do you want? More. It is not something that will ever satisfy you. That you will never, ever be content no matter how much you have. It just gives you a craving for more. Therefore, it's vanity. It's pointless. It has no meaning in life. In fact, look at verse 11. The more you have, the more people who are there to eat. This is interesting. So what profit does the owner have except to see these things disappear before his eyes? Now, please pay attention because this gets humorous. Solomon had a lot. This is a man who understood what it meant to have an abundance. But he said, listen, now wait a minute. I can speak from experience. The more you have, the more people who come around you who want to take it from you, who need to eat off of your peso, off of your meal, who want to take from your plate. So therefore, you're really not gaining, you're not getting anything because you have more stuff. You just end up giving more stuff. How much stuff did Solomon give? Here's the numbers, and they do have numbers for this. In the book of 1 Kings chapter 4, verses 22 and 23, we're told, adlaw, ang pagkaon ni Solomon. What did he have to make to feed those he employed? We're told it took 6,500 kilos of rice. Please let me repeat that, because it's almost a staggering, conceivable number. It took 130 sacks of rice, that's 6,500 kilos, every day. That was his daily rice consumption. That's a lot. On top of that, because my carne pa, you had to have Sudan, his carne was an additional 30 cows and 100 sheep per day. This is what it cost Solomon to be able to feed the masses of people because of his great wealth. So here's his point and here's his purpose. And I get this makes sense. You might go, it'd be really nice to have a gardener. Jen and I have discussed this. Wouldn't it be nice to have someone taking your... Oh, it's so nice. You don't have to do any worry about it. You just sit down and they take care of it. That sounds nice. Wouldn't it be nice to have a cook? Sino manuto para sa imo? Oh, yes, that'd be great. Let's have a cook in the house that will cook for you. Kaya may limpyo balay pa. Wouldn't it be nice to have someone clean the house? Yes, it would be nice to have someone clean the house. Wouldn't that be so amazing? And then you realize you have to feed them. You have to take care of them. They have families, they have children, they have education. Oh my goodness, forget about it. We'll take care of it ourselves. We're good. Thank you very much. We don't need anybody helping us. The more you have, the more mouths there are to feed. And Solomon goes, this is vanity. And it means you get no sleep. Look at verse 12. For the sleep of a hardworking man is sweet, whether he has a little or a lot to eat. But the abundance of the rich keep him from getting sleep. Look at the contrast. This is humorous. Wala kwarta ko. Kung wala pagkaon. If I don't have nothing, I'm just poor as poor can get, but I work hard. Sa katapos ng adlaw, at the end of the day, matulog ko. And I've got nothing to worry about. I've got nothing to be concerned about. I'm just going to sleep. In fact, I might be hungry and I want to sleep. If I sleep, I'm no longer hungry. Sleep sounds good. So I'll sleep great. The rich man, forget about it. He gets no sleep. All of his worries, all of his concerns, all of the people who want from him, that keeps him from ever being able to get a good night's sleep. Therefore, what's better? To be rich and no sleep, or poor and sleep absolutely wonderful? And Solomon argues, man, better just to be content. Work hard, be content, because having the abundance turns out to be more of a curse than a blessing. But he continues. Look at verses 13 through 17. Having looked at this whole idea of loving money, he's going to go on and deal with the fact that, quite frankly, whatever money we have doesn't last anyways. Verse 13. There's a severe evil. This isn't small. Malaot gid. There's a severe evil, Solomon says, that I've seen under the sun. Riches kept for their owner to his hurt. Those riches perished through misfortune, which he begets a son. When he begets a son, then there's nothing to give into his hand. So Solomon gives us a scenario. Nakita sa katao, mangaranan siya, tama yung kwarta. A rich man, he's got lots of resources, but he puts his trust in them. Please listen. Sa rin niya pagtoo, hindi sa Ginoo, sa kwarta na lang. He says, if you have a man who puts his faith in money, that's dangerous. It's very potentially bad. Why? Because you can lose it. All it takes is misfortune. That word misfortune just means a bad day. Maybe an investment in a bad place. Maybe it means you get sick and suddenly you no longer can do what you used to do. Whatever it might be, something bad happens and all it takes is a moment in time and your money's gone. Every bit of your wealth, every bit of your resources is drained and you have nothing left, not so much as a peso to pass on to your son, to the next generation. Why? Because you put your faith in the wrong place. I got to tell you, if you were to ask most people, honestly, if they were being truly transparent, where is your faith? The answer would be money. When hard times come, when there's a problem, what do people look to? Kwarta. Kung wala pagkaon, ano gusto sila? Kwarta. Kung ano bis kanano sa ila kabuhi, what's the solution to it? Kwarta, money. They looked at little pieces of paper, colorful pieces of paper, and they go, save me, help me, redeem me, take care of me. How very foolish. Putting our faith in something that absolutely cannot save us and it can be lost in a moment's time. Jesus would pick up on this in Matthew chapter 6. He would say, do not store your treasures on this earth. Why? Because thieves can steal it, moths can destroy it, rust can consume it. Where should you store up your treasures? Dito sa langit na lang. Put your treasures in heaven where thieves cannot touch it, moths cannot get to it, rust cannot affect it. Do not put your trust in the wrong place, because where your treasures are, there your heart will go also. Solomon got it. He understood it. Be careful of putting your faith in the wrong place, because you put your faith in a bad investment, and it can go away in a minute. But also, you're not going to keep it anyways. Look at verse 15. As a man came from his mother's womb, naked he shall return, to go just as he came. He shall take nothing from his labor with him and carry it away in his hand. Kung nagbata kita, what did we have? Literally nothing. I mean, exactly nothing. Not so much as clothing on our backs. We came into this world absolutely naked. You know, funny. I was teaching a number of years ago in Himam Island. And in Himam Island, because I'm at the church in the Bukid, I'll often switch between languages a bit more. And so I was teaching, and I happened to make a statement about being, wala bugas. Wala bugas means no rice. Bim Bim heard it and thought I said hublas. It was very humorous and made the message very confusing to the people. Needless to say, we come into this life hublas. We are naked. We have absolutely nothing to call our own. Kung nagwa kita, when we're taken out, what do we have? Amuman. Hublas pa. We come in with nothing. We leave with nothing. Therefore, why do we waste our lives trying to accumulate stuff here? If you think about it, it really is quite foolish. I'm going to stack up and build up lots of stuff. For what? Well, I have lots of money. For how long? But I got great possessions. To go where with it? None of it's going to last. It's all going to disappear. How foolish it is to waste on that stuff. You're wasting time on that stuff. This is why we're told in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5, be content. Don't seek the things of this life, because they do not last. Jesus was saying in Luke chapter 12, verse 15, our life does not exist in the abundance of the things that we possess. It doesn't matter how much money, how much stuff we have, because when we die, whatever we have, we leave. Nothing, none of it goes with us. And so Solomon recognized us, said, listen, that's vanity, that's futile. If you're putting your trust in money, you're trusting in something you cannot hold on to. For, look at verse 16, this also is a severe evil. Just exactly as a man came, naked, hublas, so shall he go. And what profit has he for all that he labored for the wind? All of his days he eats in darkness. He has much sorrow, sickness, and anger. Now, Solomon really paints a broad picture here, showing us just how futile this kind of a life is. He says, if you are living for stuff, if you live for money, you're going to lose it all. You're going to leave just as naked as you came, and this is a great evil. Why? Because if you wasted your life grasping wind, here's our term again, trying to say, I want to have a better this, that, life, possessions, money, job, whatever it might be, fill in the blank, whatever we're striving for. If we grasp for that, think that somehow that's going to satisfy us, it will be wind. Why? Because when we die, it's gone. No matter what we try to hold on to, we will lose it the moment we leave this life. Therefore, what purpose did it really have? And he goes, you suffered for that. You went through hardship. You went through difficulties. You were in darkness and sorrow and sickness and anger, all for nothing. Because you put your faith in something that you cannot keep. Now, keep in mind, Solomon is looking at life under the sun. He's only looking what he can see. This is where he does not come to, does not quite grasp what the real answer is. Life is not about getting stuff. That's true. What is life about? Only one thing. We are here to choose where we will spend our eternity. That's what this life is for. And I have to tell you, it is futile, it is foolish, it is truly vanity to grasp at wind, to try to hold on to things we will never be able to take with us. And in our effort to do that, potentially lose out on the blessing of eternity that God wants for us in heaven. There is much greater waiting if we'll simply put our trust in the Lord than anything this world could ever offer. There's no riches, there's no position, there's no possession in this world that will ever match or put a candle to what God has for us waiting in heaven. And how foolish to waste our life here and miss the blessings that God has for us there. This is ultimately why this life should not be looked for in possessions. But that brings us to the conclusion in verses 18 through 20. For Solomon, kind of turning it all around, does say, I did see one thing good. Don't look to religion. Certainly don't trust in politics or finances and money. But there is one thing good that is there. He says, here I have seen, it is good and fitting for one to eat and to drink, enjoy the good of all of his labor in which he toils under the sun, all the days of his life which God gives to him for his heritage. Let me unwrap this because this is powerful. Solomon says, here's what is good. Money's not, religion's not. What is good? It is good to be content with simply food and drink. If we have what is necessary, rephrase that, hindi ano kung gusto kita ang kinahanglan ara na sa aton. If we have what we need, not what we want, we should be okay. And then we do good with our time. Use our gifts, our abilities, the time and the opportunities God gives to us to do good to others, bless others, live our life for others. For if we do that in the short time that God has given to us, in the short amount of years God has put us upon this earth, that gives us a blessed life. Because we do not have much time. And there's an emphasis to this here. How many years do we have upon this earth? 60, 70, 80. Ang iban, if you have Eric's genes, maybe 100 years. It's a long life. But that time goes so quickly. I can remember being young and thinking 30 was old. We were talking about this the other day. Jen and I were laughing at this. Do you remember when you thought 30 was old? Yes, I do remember when I thought 30 was old. I thought, ay, 30 ka, itigulangit ka na. I now look at 30 and go, bata. Man, that's a young'un right there. Now, I'm 50 now. I'm getting older these days. And I think I'm getting old. I know people in the church, George in particular, looks at me and goes, bata pa guy. I'm still young. But I'll tell you what, don't blink. Because it goes really, really fast. If I think about how much time did it take me to get from 30 to 50, man, it was a blink. It was so fast. And that's the whole idea. We have a life that's like a vapor, James chapter 4, verse 13. A puff of smoke. We are here for a moment and we are gone. What do we do with the time that God has given to us? If we're using it to chase after stuff, if we're using it to pursue after money and foolish things that do not last, it's a waste. But if we use our time, use our talents, use our abilities to do good, now that's a blessed life. Look at verse 19. As for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, and given him power to eat of it, to receive his heritage and to enjoy in his labor, this is a gift of God. Now, don't miss the connection. To the man who wants to do good, doesn't live for money but lives for the Lord, doesn't live for possessions but wants to bless others, to that man, God will bless him. God pours out riches and wealth upon that man and gives him the ability to use it. And that becomes his heritage. It becomes what he rejoices in. And not only that, but he recognizes it's a gift of God that has been given to him. If I give someone 10 pesos, I come over and go, Francis, wala ka peso, para sa imo. Here's 10 pesos. Do with it whatever you want to, but I prefer if you wouldn't bless somebody. That's my preference. Use that money to go buy a snack or, just give someone a smile on their face. 10 pesos na lang, but go bless somebody with it. Francis goes, thank you very much for that 10 pesos, and he goes and buys himself a snack and eats it. Okay. He do what he wants to with it. I gave it to him. But if he takes that money and doesn't use it for others, he uses it for himself, am I going to give him more? Am I going to pour out more upon him? Am I going to bless him with more? Probably not. Now, let's say I turn to Candy. Sorry, Candy, you're going to be the good one in this, Francis. I'm sorry, you're the bad guy. But I turn to Candy, I go, Candy, here's 10 pesos. And she goes, oh, thank you very much. And she goes out and she finds someone and goes, you know what? I want to give you this 10 pesos just to bless you today. Ooh, wait a minute. That was a good heart. Candy, here's 100 pesos. She goes, oh, okay, thank you. And she goes, I'm going to bless more people. I'll bless 10 people now with 10 pesos apiece. Ooh, that's a really good heart. Here's 1,000 pesos. And she starts doing the same thing. Is she blessed because of something she did? No. Because she had the right heart to want to do good to others. It was the motive that ultimately brings the blessings to her. I'm almost like, listen, God doesn't lack for anything. God is not up in heaven going, you know what? I'm sorry, kulang akong kwarta subong. I'd certainly like to bless you and pour out more riches and abundance upon you, but we're we're running a little tight this month. No. God is a God who with a word created all the heavens and the earth. He doesn't lack for anything, but He's looking for people with the right heart. And if our desire is to recognize, Lord, I want to use the time you've given me. I want to use the resources you've put in my possession to be able to bless and minister to others. God goes, kanamitori na. Let me give you more. And we bless more and we pass out more. We're minister. Let me give you more yet. And we recognize this is our heritage. This is our joy. This is what makes us absolutely happy. We're like, Lord, I want to bless others. I just want to be used by you to bring joy to other people's lives. And I realize it's not because I'm so smart or I'm so good. It's your gift that you give to me. This brings the blessed life to those who will receive it. Living for others, not living for ourselves. For notice I get the pusa in verse 20. This man will not dwell unduly on the days of his life, because God keeps him busy with joy in his heart. Meaning, because he lives to bless others, because this man wants to do good to others, this man doesn't think about, dali lang akong kabuhi. Man, I don't have very many years here. You get some of these crazy billionaires. The guys that have obscene, ridiculous amounts of money. Do you know what they're consumed with? Death. Interesting to watch some of the articles dealing with them. They look for ways to extend their life. They're trying to find out how to be healthier in life because they want to live for as long as absolutely possible. All they're worried about is how few their days are. Because they're focused on money, they're focused on themselves. You find someone who's focused on others, they don't care how many years they have. They're just full of the joy of using the time they've been given to serve and to bless others for the Lord. Because go back to Acts chapter 20, verse 35, it is more blessed to give than receive. And Solomon recognized if you want to have a truly rich life, you want to have a truly blessed life, it comes from having a giving life where we live our lives to bless others. All right, let's pray. Salamat liwag kino para sa gabi. Father, we thank you as always for an opportunity to get into your word, Lord, as we continue to search, Lord, the wisdom that you gave to Solomon. Lord, he was determined to find any possible answer under the sun. There was no stone he left unturned, no possibility he did not examine. But Lord, no matter where he went, the answer never changed. It was grasping for wind. Lord, whether people look to religion, which can never satisfy us, empty ritual that can never bring us peace, Lord, or whether it's in governments, in religion, or politics, or money, Lord, these things, they're all grasping for the wind because they do not last. They're never going to give us the relationship we need with you. Because the answer is not under the sun, it's sitting upon the throne in heaven. And so, Lord, let us always hold fast to remember that what we should desire is simply to know you. So we love you, we praise you, we thank you. In Jesus' name we say, amen. Mayang gabi.